Hi everybody! In today's video, I am going to teach you the 3 ways that narcissists try to get back into your life. Maybe they want to rekindle the relationship that you had, or maybe they want to come back if you have gone no contact. So stay tuned for today's episode right here on the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom YouTube channel. Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Justin. This is the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast. Not only are we recording the podcast like I normally do, but I'm also recording this in video format for the YouTube channel. So if you can see me, hello. If you can hear me, hello as well. I'm so excited to bring this to you today. For those of you that have never listened or watched this channel or listened to this podcast, this is the podcast where we use the philosophy of yoga to tackle everyday real life situations. And we do the work one small step at a time to become happier people and move our lives into the direction of our dreams. Because I think we're all just trying to be happier people, right? And so today we're going to be looking at narcissism and its intense connection to yoga. And if you are watching this on the YouTube channel, please know that all 4 parts of this series are available to you on the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast, and you can get that anywhere that you get your podcasts. It's available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and Google and Amazon Music, all those different ones. But yeah, it's on all of those podcasts, those podcast platforms. And so I like this, and I want to do more of our podcast recordings on the YouTube channel like this, so we can have kind of a different connection through what I'm teaching you, as well as here on the YouTube channel, continuing the physical yoga classes, the meditations we do, all of those good things. So just trying to blend it all into one. So I really appreciate you all being here, and I'm excited to get started with you on today's topic, which is so important because I'm going to teach you 3 ways that narcissists try to get back into your life. Now, in the first 3 episodes of this series, because this really is this is the 4th one. And in the first 3 episodes of this series, we talked about how to recognize narcissism. We talked about how you can protect yourself from narcissism. We talked about what it would feel like after you end a relationship with a narcissist, and how this is all connected to yoga. And so before I go into these 3 ways, there are a few things that I want to say. There's actually 2 things that I want to say. And the first one is I want to note that I am not just talking about relationships of a romantic nature. I'm talking about all relationships, even those that apply to your family members. Not just those intimate relationships that you have with maybe a spouse or a partner, but I'm also talking about friendships. I'm talking about work relationships. I'm talking about, those colleagues that you have, at work, and not so work relationships might not always mean just you and your boss, but maybe the colleagues that you have and those family members. And so those few things that's the first thing I want to say. And the second thing I want to say is that I am not a medical professional. I am just here giving you advice based on my own personal experience, my personal research, and the education and studies that I've been through, as well as, some of the advice that you get from the leading experts on narcissism. And I've been through several of those courses with several of those great folks who are out there teaching on this subject. And so I always advise you to ensure that if you feel as though you need professional help when it comes to any type of relationship or getting out of a relationship, especially if it's abusive or toxic in nature and it's causing you danger, please be sure to consult with your medical professional. It's very important to do that. So I'm just here giving you advice. This is not me being a medical professional, and I'm not making any diagnosis. So with that being said, to set up the 3 things, I want to remind you that people who have a narcissistic personality love narcissistic supply. And they love that because you get enamored by them at the very beginning of it, which is called love bombing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit about love bombing here in a little bit. Because they do that to you. They make you feel like you're the best thing ever. And they love to interact with empathetic people because they have no empathy to give. So they enjoy the fact that they are the center of attention and everyone is praising them and, you know, giving them accolades and all of the things that narcissistic folks who have that narcissistic personality love. And so they don't have that empathy. And so if you're an empathetic person, if you're a person who is kind and compassionate and you feel for other people, sometimes that attracts narcissism. And it's not your fault. It's just the way that it goes, right? So when tying this into yoga, yoga is rooted in nonviolence. It's the very root of yoga, ahimsa. Okay, ahimsa, which is one of the yamas of yoga. It's rooted in nonviolence. And nonviolence is not just the non-physical violence, but it's also the nonviolence that stems from out of the mouth. The feelings, the words, all of those things that are not just the physical. And ahimsa teaches us that nothing else from yoga can be sustained if we do not root ourselves into nonviolence. Nothing else is sustained. And that's where folks who have narcissistic personalities fall away from the yoga because they move towards the ego and away from what's true and inside of you, that core, that being, your higher power, or how you connect to your higher power. So if this is the foundation of yoga, the nonviolence, the ahimsa, then as we practice, we not only practice non-harm physically, as I mentioned, but we practice it in that emotional way. And so I covered more of that in detail on previous episodes, so be sure to back up and listen to previous episodes on the podcast, because there is a lot of information out there. And if you want more information on narcissism, you can find it everywhere out there. There's tons of research that is being done and has been done, and there's tons of great information out there. So check all of that out. So now let's talk about what can happen to you when you have either A, ended a relationship and now you're using yellow or gray rock to communicate. Now, yellow or gray rock are ways that you can communicate that we spoke about in the last episode that we had on this podcast, because you will not get into anything other than kind of surface level talk or maintenance conversation when it comes to yellow rock or gray rock with someone. So there's no personal involvement there. It's all about the surface level. Yellow rock, the difference there is it's a little more flowery and kind. There's a little color to it. That's why it's called yellow rock instead of gray, which is more boring. So that could have happened to you, or you could have gone no contact. So this is where we are in this episode, is both of these things could have happened to you. You could have ended it and now you're just doing those gray rock, yellow rock, or you're dealing with no contact. So one of three things can happen. All of these three things can happen. More than these three things can happen. But these are the three things that are common, and they're all part of what the experts call hoovering. And hoovering is a term used by the professionals that means to suck you back in. You know, like the vacuum cleaner, the Hoover vacuum sucks the dirt off the carpets. They suck you back in. And they do this in three ways. Here they are. Number one, love bombing. Remember I mentioned the love bombing earlier? Love bombing is the first stage traditionally of a narcissistic relationship. This is when you first meet someone. Again, remember, this doesn't have to be someone who you're in a romantic relationship with. It feels like a fairy tale. They sweep you off your feet. You get caught up in how good it feels. Maybe it's going faster than you might have expected, and you think, oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. I've met my soulmate. We just click. Like, it happens so fast. Maybe you get showered with gifts. Maybe the friend that you now have is texting you a lot, and you're like, oh my gosh, I finally got my best friend. I've been searching for my best friend all my life, and here they are. They're always on their phone. I can see where they are on the Snapchat map, and they're looking at my Instagram stories, and all that stuff happens at the beginning. And then this goes away as the relationship develops over time, and you actually want those days back because they feel so good, right? They feel so good. They just feel like the whole world is in your favor and nothing could go wrong. but they start to go away. And then maybe you have more bad days than good. So love bombing is a way that narcissists pull you back in. So instead of the door closing and then you're in the house with your family and you're getting berated by your parents, or you're getting slammed by your brothers and sisters, or you're getting, spoken to and degraded by your partner or your kids or whoever it is, or you're in the office with your boss who treats you like gold and then turns around and then gets you behind the door and treats you like garbage. When a narcissist is trying to get you back into their life, they want to pull you back in with that love bombing because it worked the first time, right? So they want to try to pull you back in. That's number one. Number two, passive aggressive or direct guilt trips. Now, there's a couple examples I'm going to read to you right now, and here they are. No one is ever going to love you like I would. Or, I see in you things that others would never see. Or, how could you leave me in such a terrible, difficult time? Or they may even say something like this: I'm going to just go ahead and get therapy. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm never going to raise my voice again. I'm never going to do XYZ again. All these promises, right? Because you don't deserve that. You don't deserve the way I act when I'm drunk, or you don't deserve the way that I treat you and your sisters and your brothers, or you don't deserve the way that I've ignored your text messages or your phone calls when you've needed me as your friend. Those things could happen. It's that direct kind of guilt, or it's passive aggressive. Finally, and this number three is probably the biggest, and that is flying monkeys. Now, you may have heard the flying monkey term from The Wizard of Oz, if you've seen The Wizard of Oz, and the Wicked Witch has the flying monkeys that, kind of, they protect her, they honor her, they want to be around her. These are, in real life, flying monkeys. These are people who are enablers. They are enablers, and they can be the most difficult people to deal with sometimes, because the narcissist at this point could already be either on no contact or on one of the rocks, the gray, the yellow. So if you share mutual friends with someone, or mutual family members, or you share mutual coworkers, some people may choose sides. The flying monkeys may choose sides. And when that happens, it can be awful for you, because it makes you feel like not only does the narcissist try to guilt you, but the flying monkeys start to guilt you. And so when that happens, that could be so uncomfortable. And flying monkeys are people who are willing to do the narcissist's dirty work, like come up to you and say, why did you break up with your girlfriend? Or why don't you speak to your mother anymore? Or, life is short. You should just do this or that. Those things like when people tell you how to live your life, which is all from ego when someone tells you how to live your life, by the way. When that kind of stuff happens, that's an enabler. That's a flying monkey. They could have loyalty to the narcissist. They may not have loyalty to the narcissist. But the narcissist may recruit flying monkeys to go out there and either contribute to some kind of smear campaign against you, or just try to win you back into the narcissist's circle. Flying monkeys are covertly enabling. Here's an example I love to use when it comes to coworkers or work situation. So an example there would be you had a narcissistic coworker, and you decided, all right, this narcissistic coworker, they're going on either no contact or they're doing this. Most of the time when it's at work, though, you may have to do the gray rock because you may have to interact with them or do things with them, whatever the case may be. And when the flying monkey comes in, the enabler, this could be your boss. And so your boss puts up with them. This is how your boss becomes a flying monkey to your narcissistic coworker. And your boss will put up with them. They will make concessions for the narcissist. And they will do all these things even if the narcissist has damaged you, damaged the organization, damaged the customers or the clients, and even damaged that boss. So the boss becomes a toxic person as well. They are now an enabler, and they can, in my view, are just as guilty as the narcissist. Because if a boss or anyone else understands truly what someone who has gone through narcissistic abuse has gone through, They will not enable a narcissist. If they watch videos like this or study up on it or even do what's best for their own organization, they're not going to allow a narcissist to control everything, because when you do something like that, all you're doing is practicing ego, not yoga. So what do you do? What do you do when all of this happens? Well, what you need to do is think what's best for your situation and for you and for who's involved. Yoga is based around self-reflection, meditation, releasing all those fucks, because we give so many fucks all the time. We give a fuck about everything. So when you start to release the fucks, you're moving into some yoga, you start to release those worries, the procrastination, and you start to let yourself flow. You start to love completely and unconditionally. And narcissism is the opposite of that. It's rooted in ego. And that's the exact opposite of practicing or teaching or having anything to do with yoga. Narcissistic individuals cause pain. They cause trauma. They cause PTSD. They also cost people their livelihoods. If you've been in a relationship or a marriage with a narcissist for decades and suddenly your whole life is turned upside down, then you go through terrible fights about money and children and custody battles. It's a whole mess. And so you then have to work 10 times harder to build your life back. And that can be really traumatizing. So this is why I'm really passionate about this subject, because if you are practicing yoga, you understand how to treat people with grace, gratitude, and empathy. You also work to find peace. And you work to not disrupt someone else's life by manipulating them or manipulating other people to get your fix like a narcissist would. So the road to recovery on this is long. And again, it could feel insurmountable, but understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a light on the other side, and you owe yourself the respect to deal with that, to deal with the difficult people in the way that you, or maybe the way that you and your doctor or your medical professional decide you're going to deal with. Make no mistake though, narcissistic people operate on a behavior pattern that is very destructive. And it's not kind of an oops, I made a mistake and I hurt your feelings once and then I changed my behavior. This is a repeating process over and over and over. And that's why this is so important to understand what could happen after you have let go of that narcissistic relationship, because it could be likely to happen again and again if you were to let them back in. And you don't deserve to be hurt over and over. You deserve happiness, a life of happiness, a life where your dreams can come true. And we do that, we practice that on this channel and on this podcast, ways to get your life point your life or turn the steering wheel, drive in the direction, what you want to call it. We do that on this channel, little by little, by little, by little, by little. And so it is very important to do the small things, one step at a time, every single day, to lead you to happiness, because that's what we're here for, more happiness. And I hope today when you find that happiness, pay attention, you'll find it, that you enjoy it, because you do deserve it. And so with that, we conclude today's episode. And so we'll see you. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week or weekend whenever you're watching this or listening to this. And we'll see you all very soon right here on the Strength, Yoga, and Freedom podcast.